Mama's
Den again. I know that's right. This is Codie, mama to Brooks, Aristotle, and Langston.
I'm Melanie. What am I? I am a mother. I'm a mother to 2 children, a 7-year-old and a 1.5 old. That's Cameron and Kaya Love.
I'm Fee, Mama Fee, and I have Peace and Zen. Those are my children's names, yes.
Ooh, and you. Yes, exactly.
I'm Ashley, and I'm a mother of 4. And
Damn.
Shout out to the Mama's Den content.
to do
Got an army over there.
Yes, I have a 14-year-old who's a freshman in high school.
Oh my gosh.
A 7-year-old now. She turned 7. 5-year-old and an almost 2-year-old. All girls.
Girl.
Yay.
Oh, you weren't going to say their names?
I would like to say that.
Amira, Azara, Asia, and Natalia.
Oh, look at that.
I would like to say that my youngest, who is also not less than a month younger than Ashley's, is also Ashley's 5th daughter.
Yes,
Ashley,
Kaya Love.
Ashley definitely manifested me having another baby and it being a girl. So
I also have
we share these responsibilities.
I have Kaya and Kyla because Kyla Bell, shout out to Tiff. Oh, her daughter is that was my 2nd daughter.
See,
I have 6 daughters.
She has 6 daughters. Mother of dragons.
All right. We got questions for us.
Ooh.
Okay. And as we get into these questions, to the folks listening, if you have a question, okay, you can send us a question. Oh, there's a lot of question. Girl. You can send us a question if you have a question on Instagram at the Mama's Den Podcast or via email at podcasts with an S. I thought y'all were gonna throw it, throw an S in there.
With S.
You are adlibs.
My bad.
Podcast with an S at blacklove.com or through the Google, okay, in the show notes. Let's get into these questions. First,
I would like to read the first question because this is this is a mama from the island. So I feel that in the true spirit of island mamas, I would like to bring out my island mama.
Will you read it
voice.
with an accent?
I will definitely read it with an accent. Okay, this is island mama from Antigua. Now, by the way, I don't know truly what an accent from Antigua sounds like, but I'm just going to go into my general Caribbean accent. Okay. Hello, ladies. Your show is so refreshing. I can't express how meaningful these convos are for me. My question is, how do you create balance between having a spouse, childcare, and self-care? Some days I feel like I disappoint someone because I am not spending sufficient time or I am just plain exhausted. What are your tips and tricks?
That was so cute.
It was adorable.
I was like, I actually really think you need to start talking like that.
My mom would be so proud.
Let me be your manager and get you some voiceover jobs.
That was like a meld of like Guyanese, Trinidadian, like
Listen,
other. So
you can
just shout out to all the Caribbean mamas.
The Disney aunt on an animated series who's from the islands.
Listen,
I'm with it.
Okay, so. What? Yes.
Child, the
Who
balance.
wants to answer?
Codie, go first.
Please, I was literally reading this like, ma'am, I've got no answers for this.
She said, me too.
How do you create balance? Exactly. I'm looking at y'all. Somebody answered this question for me and the island mama.
Felicia.
Okay, so I'm reading it a second time. We're really happy that these conversations are meaningful.
Bye. Hurry up.
She got lost in the accent.
I did. I was like, I wasn't even listening. I was listening, but I wasn't digesting.
Okay, I'll add something since I just came off of this question because I literally don't have an answer for myself, but have this exact same question. And I think my always answer whenever people bring up the balance word is just like, balance is not this like 50-50. I equally put enough time into myself, my husband, and my children today.
No.
It just doesn't happen like that. I don't think in the reality of real life, maybe it can for some people, but I think the majority of us struggle with that. And so I think it's making peace with the fact that things are okay unbalanced, 50-50, and being like, how do we designate the time? So, okay, whatever small, I think that self-care, to be honest, for women and mothers especially, is to me the priority. And I don't care if that's 30 minutes one day or 3 minutes one day. Like, I feel like it is so important for parents and mothers to pour into themselves at some point so that at the end of the day, after they've literally exhausted every ounce of energy and resource into everyone else, because it's just what we do, that you didn't feel like you didn't do that for yourself at any point in the day. So I just think that like one small ounce of self-care every day is a part of that balance. And then also making designated days for things.
Yeah.
To be like, all right, so today I am full on with the kids. I'm not going to get to go to my yoga class today, but on Fridays, that's my yoga class today. So spouse, as I've been working with you as a partner throughout the week to manage our household, this is the day I need. And I think asking for help and feeling worthy that you can ask for help has been a game changer for me most recently. And so I don't think there's any tricks or tips. That's just like finding your own way through it.
Oh, I have an idea. Sorry, not idea. Something that I just told Mel about the other day. I told her, I was like, oh, you're going to be so proud of me. But Amira was trying out for a team for 3 days, and she had to be there from 4:30 until 6:30. So instead of me dropping her off and going home, I stayed in the car, and then I worked, and I was like writing because I'm working on this book. And so then the girls, they have dance on Saturdays from 10 to 1, which is a long stretch. And then Chia was like, are you going to come home? And I was like, no, I'm going to stay and write. And so I just sat in the lobby of the dance studio, and I wrote and worked on the book. So I think also taking pockets of time within time for other things and creating space for yourself is super important, because obviously I have a lot of kids, and just being able to spend time with myself is hard. And I've also been forcing myself to wake up early and go on my walks before the day starts. And it has made me feel like 1,000% better just about myself and as a mother. Sorry, I have a little lisp because this thing in my braces. I'm like, Cindy's on the thethol. But
Fitting on a thethol.
but no, I think that creating time within time. That makes sense.
Yeah. I feel both of you guys. I feel like for me, I have to plan my self-care times. Like, I think I make it a priority to plan it, because I know that if I'm not showing up to the things that make me feel full and happy and satisfied, and mind you, that can look like having hot tea and breathing for 5 minutes in the morning before anybody else. That can look like prayer. That can look like taking a pottery class. But I have to be intentional and be like, okay, Felicia, you have to do it. But I also think that it's a lifestyle thing, and getting those pockets when you can, like, because as a mom, as a woman, there's so many things that we juggle. And I feel like if you have a pocket, like, utilize that pocket,
for sure.
like lean into that pocket. Asking for help is a game changer. I love asking for help. I can't believe I ever thought that asking for help was a sign of weakness.
No.
I was like, oh, hell no.
That's a whole nother episode.
Girl, glad we rewrote that part of the subconscious mind.
Listen, I'll share a piece from my therapy session last week, and we were talking about like the balance of, I tend to be very considerate to what my partner is going through and what he has to do. And that's kind of like, it's a double-edged sword, because I'm happy to do that, but then also I realize that I can also be self-sacrificing in that way as well. And so I was saying to my therapist, I was just like, she's like, what is it that you're telling yourself that that stops you from asking for the help? And I'm like, I just feel like, rather than like wait for the reaction of what it could be that feels like I'm putting more in that direction, I'll just get it done myself. And she's like, but you're doing that to yourself. She's like, so you just ask, hey, can you ... And if the person on the other end, does not respond in a positive way, that has nothing to do with you. 1. 2, it will likely get done even if they have to huff and puff. And that's the goal. So you just have to be like, hey, can you? And then I was like, but what happens if there's resistance? She was like, you say, like somebody says like, oh, why do you want me to do that? Because I need the help.
Yeah.
It's nothing else. It's not, I'm not trying to punish you. I'm not trying to, tip these scales or play tit for tat. I need the help. This is why I'm asking. This is the only reason why I'm asking.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something we have to give ourselves permission to do in every area of life.
Yeah.
Which sometimes as women, and especially Black women, we are taught like, yeah, you could do it. Just get through it. You could do it. You could get through it. It's like, oh shit. Can somebody just help me just get through this a little
That's
bit?
my answer to everything. I am a weak woman. I am dainty and in need of help. I can't do it on my own. I do that all the time. And I'm like, oh,
hilarious.
I can't. I need your help. I need my man.
I'm
not
I'm
doing
not
it.
saying it like that.
I do. I need my man, my man.
Did you see? I don't know if you guys saw this clip going around about, the idea of being strong versus fragile. And somebody was just like, she said, I want to be referred to as fragile. She's like, I don't care if you think that sounds weak. What is something that's fragile? It's delicate. You handle it with care. You give it extra packing when you're shipping it. She's like, all these things. She was like, I can too break.
Yeah.
So treat me like I am fragile
I'm
because
fragile.
I am. And I was like, damn.
Yep. Fragile.
Fragile.
What about you, Codie?
I'm going to add. Well, I told you I didn't have no answers, but y'all did inspire me to remember that like something that I'm really bad at, and as a person who's highly scheduled, is like I can schedule nothing if I want to. You know what I mean? Even an hour of like no meetings
Yeah.
or whatever. Just like I can schedule that and I don't. The same as I can schedule a date night or I can schedule like hanging out, one-on-one time with my kids and I don't. I kind of show up for the things I have to show up for and then I just am tired. But I need to take more control of it.
But it's good that you know that you have those pockets. You're like, I'm like, I feel like that's also a form of self-care, not booking a damn thing.
Yeah.
The sweetness of nothing? Oh, come on now.
Girl. Yeah.
Let me just sit outside in the sunshine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, sorry, I have to say something to what you're saying about the asking for help. I think a lot of times we'll ask for help or we'll hold ourselves back from asking for help because we're afraid of like how the person's going to answer, whether the answer is no or I can't do it. But I feel like detaching ourselves from what we feel somebody's going to say and allowing them the opportunity to say, hey, I can't do it or I can do it.
Yeah.
I feel like it's also a game changer. Like now, the way that I overly communicate things to my partner, I'm like, you should not be confused by anything because it's like I'm asking, and if it is a resistance, I'm like, why is there resistance? Well, I have to do the okay. Well, then it's okay for you to say no, babe. Look, I am not playing,
Girl.
I'm like that communication is.
Well, what was
Baby.
something on Black Love? Who was it though? Who said it? Was it you? I think it was Round Table Talk, or was it an interview?
So many things.
Wait, hold on.
I don't know, girl.
First of all, there's no Round Table Talk. What's
There
it
was
called?
a ladies round table.
Yes,
that you
but
did.
it's not called Round Table Talk.
She's like, it was a red table.
No,
It is
no,
a red
girl.
table.
No,
Not
round
ladies-
table.
A ladies round table. or
Yes,
the
but it
men's.
wasn't. I don't know.
The
But-
one you were on.
Damn it!
No,
what,
you
who
said
what?
I think it was you who said it. It was just
Oh,
really
After Love.
Yeah, After Love. You were talking about communication and how people say in relationships is about
hilarious.
communication and
She's
communication.
talking about something else entirely. But
Okay,
I said
what was it?
It was another
that
appearance on a
communication
podcast.
is like so much more than what you say.
There
It's
you
how
go.
you say it. It's the
Yeah.
facial expression you made. It's that one like high word, but all of it. The eye roll,
Right.
the eye twitch.
Which I felt like when you said that, I was like, that is so important because people always are like communication, but also if you don't communicate the same way either, that's not always just the answer. It's how you communicate. And I'm like, that how in front of
There's
communication.
all these one-liners that people like hold on to. You know what I mean? Communication is key.
Yes.
There's so much more to that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
Like they took out
nobody
the
wants to
rest of
think
the
about all
sentence.
that.
What they say 80% of communication is nonverbal.
Verbal, yeah.
And
That's
I'm
a
like,
lot.
that's why sometimes if I see my little boo, I'm like, that was an eye roll. The way that you huffed. He's like, no, nothing's wrong. I'm like, I can see your body language.
Right.
I'm a
Right.
Scorpio.
I
can see
it
through
all.
everything.
I can see
All
it all.
right, he's going to read from Atlanta. I feel like you should, Codie, because
I
that's
feel like
wrong.
you should.
Go down.
I read that
from
I read that
I need to
offline.
focus
That's
on this
you,
one.
No,
Mama.
I'm reading the one from Ohio because I'm from
Okay,
Ohio.
fine.
My attention span.
Then
Okay,
I'll
let's see.
do it
It's a
because
lot
it's
of
3
words.
paragraphs.
That's why I wanted her to read it.
Yes, that's not
Yes.
what it says. Yes,
Yes, it's probably yes.
From Atlanta, Georgia. Hey, mamas. I'm biracial. My mother is black and my father is Iranian. My mom was Christian and my dad was Muslim. This is why I told Ashley to read this.
Okay, this
But
is like
neither
me.
one of them practices their religion anymore. Growing up, there was never really a convo about which religion my brother and I would follow. We went to a Christian church with my mom and my dad practiced his religion separately. As a Christian, if you hear that, as a Christian, you hear that if you don't believe in Jesus, then you won't go to heaven. That message always left me confused because I wondered if my dad would be sent to hell since he wasn't Christian. Oh my gosh. Another Christian topic that had me confused was sins because humans make mistakes all the time. I've always been afraid of the unknown and death because I wondered if my sins would cause me to go to hell and if God would really believe if I said Jesus was my Lord and Savior, knowing I was doubtful. As an almost 30-year-old having these thoughts along with life changes and losing loved ones, I've become very conflicted about what is what as far as religion goes. I saw Ashley's post about what makes you believe in God, and I can definitely agree that having a child and losing people makes me feel like there is a higher power as well. However, I feel like I'm just existing in life without having a deep connection with God, and I am longing for it, just without religion. That's a word. How do you connect with God/higher power, free from having to solely identify as one specific religion? Is it possible to believe in God or look at holy books from various religions for positivity and a connection with God?
Absolutely.
You guys mind if I touch on this?
Yeah, go.
Ready to go in. Pastor Fee is tapped in. So I personally, I have my relationship. Hi.
How'd that happen?
Did you see that? Yes. I have my relationship with God that I've had since I was like a 7-year-old girl. And it's just such a personal relationship. And I think religion is something that gives people like foundation and kind of like starts the values out. But I wouldn't say I'm super religious. Like, I get it. I know what it's for. But I've practiced and studied like so many different religions, and I'm like, the foundation of it is be a good person, you know what I mean? Love, be kind. Like, it's all the same foundational things. So I feel like for myself, in terms of exploring what that relationship looked like with God, because I used to totally feel like that too. Growing up Christian, it's very like, if you don't do this, you're going to hell. And then, but as an adult, I had to really challenge, like, do I really feel like that's how, like, the God that I serve is going to be like, so like, okay, you did one thing wrong, you know, you're going to hell. I'm like, but it doesn't make sense, especially in the worlds of Christianity. It doesn't make sense, because if we're saying that all sin is equal, then why is it that some people are like singling out, like, let's say, homosexuality is like, why are these people singled out, but you just lied yesterday? Even if it's a white lie, it's still a quote unquote sin. So I just feel like religion sometimes confuses all of that, and it's such a disservice, because having your connection with God, no matter what religion, is such a like a relationship that you can't pay for. Like, you have to tap into, you know? So sometimes when I hear stuff like that, it just makes me so sad. Like, clearly this person went to church and was told these things by another human being, you know? So I always say, just, and I teach my children too, like, I'm going to have you guys go to church. You guys understand the foundational things, but your relationship with God is your relationship. That's your own personal thing. Mommy can introduce you, but I can't keep it going for you. Like, you have to do that, you know? But I just believe in the breaking it down to like the simplicity of like being a good person. But religion can be confusing.
It can, for sure. I mean, I grew up the same way she did, obviously. Like, I went to church every Sunday and I went to the mosque every Friday. I wore a hijab until I was 12 years old, and did every Ramadan and everything. Like, I got a religion OD. And my mom was very like, we were raised Muslim, but she still was like very open. So we would go to like powwows and we would go to temples, and like she introduced us to every religion and made everything Hare Krishna's child. We was out there hitting tambourines with them.
Girl, you see people knocking on my door.
No, those are Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay. I studied that too.
It's different. But no, I think for me, there came a point too where, number one, it was like, as I continued to be more and more educated, I love history, I love philosophy, and I took a ton of those classes in college, and learning about the history of the world, and then learning about religion. And, you know, there's some like discrepancies. And so just understanding that, and understanding man, and understanding that we're flawed human beings, and people reiterating stories and rewriting them, and rewriting the Bible over and over and over again, and taking out stories, and this one doesn't fit,
and what fits them.
Exactly. So for me, like, the more and more I learned about those things, I think it made it really easy for me to detach from it. And realize that my connection with God and my connection with nature and my spirituality was my journey and my journey alone. But there are one thing she touched in there, like, is it okay to read different Absolutely. You can read as many books as you want and take from whatever you want that makes you a good person. And that's always my theory. Whatever you're following that makes you be a good person, just keep doing that.
Right.
Like, whatever makes you feel accountable and conscious, then that's what you should be doing. But I will die on this hill. I feel like, obviously, religion is man-made, and I don't feel like anyone has a right to tell anyone what they can and can't do with their life, or what is and isn't going to get you into heaven, because none of us know. At the end of the day, literally no one knows. It's all what we feel and believe is true. And so I get it. Like, coming out of religious guilt is hard for a lot of people, myself included.
Yeah, for sure.
But I would just say, be gentle with yourself and trust your intuition and trust your heart, and allow yourself to guide you to a place that feels at peace. And wherever that journey takes you, if I feel like you're doing the right thing, if you're living consciously and you're living from your heart and being a good person and truly not judging other people.
Girl, that religion guilt, I was like, that's the word.
Yeah.
It's
a real thing. I don't know about you ladies.
Yeah. I was going to say, I just wanted to affirm her, and you did that when she asked, is it possible to believe in God and look at holy books from various religions for positivity and a connection with God?
Heck yeah.
Yes. Like, I think we're all saying yes. And I don't, like, she wrote a lot, and I don't want it to get lost in like our personal stories that like she is, searching for the right things for peace and love and connection. And so I just wanted to affirm that. But like for me, I absolutely grew up in the church, going every Sunday, going to Sunday school, everything.
too.
But I was fortunate in that, and I always felt like I enjoyed church, but then every once in a while they would say something where I'd be like, what? Like, why are we judging this, that, or the other thing? And that always threw me. And I was fortunate in that when I was in college, I was introduced to Conversations with God, the book by Neil Donald Walsh. And like the reality of like whether or not this man talked to God, I do not know, but I loved and appreciated like the lessons in the book, which greatly pointed to what you said, Felicia, like that like God doesn't want you to suffer. God doesn't want you to like fear him.
Yeah.
You know, like there's so much more obviously in hundreds of pages, but like I just remember like that book just changed things for me and made me focus on my relationship with God as number one. And that was it. Like I never looked back. It was always like, this is just the way forward.
Yeah. That book
That's
is
beautiful.
That book is fire.
I should get that
I
for
love
Amira.
that book.
I've never read it.
It's so good. It's so, I don't know. You feel like you're talking to God. Like the God in my mind is the same person that this man is writing about, you know? Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah. And I was in college. Like I didn't know no better, but I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. What about you, Mel?
It's interesting because I grew up Christian and Muslim. My dad is Muslim. My mom is Christian. Went to Catholic school. Religion was something I never really took to specifically, even though I was forced to.
Right.
Very much. I went to Catholic school. You had to communion. You did all those things. You knew all the prayers. But it wasn't something that I think as a child I held onto my life. I think that when I look back and I even think about myself as a child, my spiritual intuition has always been the grounding foundation, I think, for my connection to what spirituality and what quote unquote religion could be. I've never been somebody that I think has chosen a like strict one lane, approach to religion, but the spirituality aspect, and I would just impart this because I think everybody's kind of expressed already the sentiments I too agree with, but I really would encourage Yas to recognize that God, the belief in God, if you have that, is recognizing that God is in everything. God is you. God is in the trees. God is in your children. God is in everything that you can. And so you can find that connection to your God, to what keeps you grounded and humble and disciplined and good and compassionate. And I think that you can find that in everything that exists because God is everywhere. And so, maybe it's reframing the idea of it necessarily looking like a religion more than it looks like a spiritual practice and an acknowledgement and a connection and a relationship.
Right.
So that's kind of like, I think what's kept me understanding and knowing that again too, that like God is in you. You are connected to the spirit of God in yourself. And so to tap into that requires those conversations, requires that acknowledgement and the development of the relationship.
One thing I want to add, just when you said that too, is I think for me, my daily practice, and this is what I tell my children all the time, especially my teenager now that she's in high school, is that God is love. So wherever love exists, that's where God is. And wherever it is void of, God is probably not dwelling there. And you need to remove yourself from that presence. You know what I mean? And so just understanding that too, that, and not just things that make you feel good, like ice cream, like, cause there's things that can make you feel good where there's hard work.
Look, sometimes God is in the ice cream, baby girl.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Especially Jenny's. Shout out to Jenny's.
Okay. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think God is in the struggle. God is in the
that's what I was saying. Yeah.
God
But
is in those hard
understanding
times.
that because there's a difference between God being in a struggle and then there's a difference between something that is totally not for you.
Yeah.
And so that comes with really understanding yourself and knowing what's good for you.
And discernment.
And your your discernment and your intuition. I say all the time that God talks to everybody. Everybody just does not listen. And that your intuition, those feelings, that feeling you get when you're around something, it's not feeling right. It doesn't make me feel good. That is God telling you, abort mission.
Yeah.
This is not it. This is not the space for you.
I've definitely gotten really good at like going to spaces. I call them like refill or like fuel stations, like going to certain spaces and creating certain experiences for myself that allow me to really tap into that connection. So like when I do yoga, I feel like I'm just me and God is one channel. When I do my pottery, it's just God and I. But that's the thing too, is like how you said the when you're doing yoga, you have to literally focus on yourself. You can't look to the left or the right, because if somebody starts teetering to the left, you end up starting to go too. So it's such a focus on when I'm looking at myself, but I'm like, no, I'm connecting with God in this moment. And I feel like it's such a reflection of just, I don't know, just a reflection of God and how God shows up like in all of our lives, you know?
1000%.
Yeah. Finding God in those pockets too, you know? Y'all got some good questions.
I know these are good.
I know, right?
Y'all better come on.
I just want to shout out Yas and
Yeah.
thank you for being so transparent and vulnerable. You know, religion can be something that some people don't like to share or talk about.
Yeah,
openly.
for sure.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I think just even putting yourself out there with questions to receive feedback, I hope that like you find what it is that you need and what you're looking for.
I concur.
Yeah, love
I
it.
concur.
All right.
Come on, Ohio.
Come on, Ohio.
Come on, Ohio.
Brianna from Ohio. Do I know you, girl? Where you from? Okay. Hi,
state.
ladies. First, I would like to say that your podcast gets me through my days being a co-parenting mother who is trying to figure life out. I am in a season in my life where I'm feeling called to move specifically to Birmingham or Atlanta.
Come on, specific GPS.
I know, right?
Those are very different cities.
I
but
have
carry on.
family there. No, I'm kidding. And my family's views align with mine more than my father's. Wait, let's read. Okay, I have family there. My family's views align with mine more than his father's.
Yeah.
Sorry. He's a very present father, but really enjoys partying and drinking, which causes him to do stupid things, and he can sometimes be very short with our child. But I am very scared to leave Ohio because my co-parent is here and we co-parent throughout the week. How do you decide what is right, even if what is right is the harder choice? Signed, a trying mother. Well,
I
Fee,
feel that.
you want to answer that one because you co-parent, maybe?
Well, I can only speak from like my own personal experience, obviously. But for me personally, I know that I look at my children's relationship with their father and how much they love their father, how much they love their father being around and doing things with them. So that was always the thing that I was like, I never want to take that away from them. Now I feel like if somebody's like partying and drinking and doing things that are like risky, I definitely think that's something you should like talk to somebody about or talk to him about. But I don't know. I think it's difficult because also if your tribe is somewhere else, you know, that's honestly, you have a tough decision. Like I wouldn't know what to do either.
Yeah, I think initially as a child who grew up in a divorced home, I would say that, or I don't want to say divorced because my parents were never married, but whatever, separated home.
How do you forgetting that?
No, never got married because my dad married somebody else while I was with my mom. Shout out to my dad. Love you though. It happens. So anyway, I feel like being close to my father was really important to me. And okay, you know, my dad had some character flaws in the beginning, but he was like 20 something. So I try to keep that in mind. And my mom never held that against my father, but also was never in a dangerous situation. So that's I want to be specific about that. My dad never put my life in danger and he never did anything to risk our lives or our safety. So but however, my mom kept us close to my dad and I'm so grateful for that. So it's hard because a part of me is like, you kind of want to stay in the same state or the same area because you want your child to be able to experience both parents. But I do have friends who parent from like cross country and they just exchange their child and they make it work and their kid is super happy and healthy and developed. That's and good. Yeah, I mean, they're literally parenting from 2 different countries and they share time and space. So it's very possible to do that if you and the co-parent are in a healthy relationship and you can create some type of schedule that would really work for the child. Yeah. But the caveat is that you're saying that he parties a lot and is doing these other things. So maybe some family counseling and start from there and kind of see where that goes, you know, like all 3 of you together and maybe you and the person just separately to figure out like a good language and boundaries, and then you can build from there before you move to another state.
Good idea. Counseling,
That's actually great advice.
Counseling is great advice. Yeah, because I was like, girl, I don't know. That's great.
My only thought, and I don't know nothing, is that is that if that's something that like she feels called to do, right? Like there's a reason for that. It doesn't mean it's like what she needs to do, but like she asked, you know, how do you decide what's right, even if it's like super hard? I would say like if that's something that you feel called to do, like truly evaluate what it looks like,
pros and cons.
Because you move knowing full well you want your child to have a relationship with his father. Then the question is like how do you look to arrange that? You know what I mean? Like that's gonna be on both of y'all. So like really looking at the entire picture and deciding, am I up for that? Is he up for that? Do I even, can I fix my mouth to say this is what I'm gonna do, this is what I think we should do? You know, I think therapy should be a part of that too, but like truly examine what does it look like? Because it isn't picking up and moving and now we have no relationship with this man. You know, it's figuring it out all around.
Yeah, I concur. There's another one, but there's no name. There's no name. You want to read that one, Melly Mel?
Oh yeah,
Codie?
this one has no name. Do we just make one up?
Just says.
Okay. Anonymous from Anonymous.
Anonymous from Anonymous. It's me again?
I think it's you.
Oh yeah.
Come on, Fee.
Okay. Anonymous from Anonymous.
Okay.
What am I even saying?
Anonymous.
John Doe. Okay. Hi, mama.
John Doe.
That's a dead person usually.
No, don't you say it like
it's
when
just a
like
person
name?
you don't know. Like if someone's like is discovered on the street, you don't know their name.
Wait, I was like, oh
SVU.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, I've been
I
saying
watched
this?
too much SVU. Sorry.
Okay.
Somebody without ID is John Doe.
So Riley from Las Vegas, Nevada. Hi, mamas. I love the pod and desperately need some advice. How do you all handle unsolicited parenting advice from immediate family members when you don't parent the way they want you to? I have a 1-year-old daughter and we don't live close. Did I do it wrong?
No.
Okay. I was like, wait. Okay. I have a 1-year-old daughter and we don't live close to my family, so we don't see them very often. My daughter is very shy around people. She does not see often and is very clingy to me, but she does have a very spicy and big personality when she's out of her shell. On our most recent visit to my family house, my mother kept saying to my daughter that she is rude and she has no discipline. She constantly says to her how she needs to get some slaps in order. Ooh, child. Okay. In order for her to listen properly. She does not say it to me, but only says it to my daughter. Well, I'm like, how old is this?
One.
A 1-year-old? Come on. You know what the answer is. Riley, girl.
Right.
Okay. She constantly says to her, okay, it's hurtful and makes me feel like I'm doing a bad job parenting my daughter. I don't want to raise her constantly yelling and hitting her. I'm realizing that parenting is hard, but I want to be a safe place for my child, but also have firm boundaries and understanding with her. How can I raise an emotionally intelligent child, but also stick to having firm and stern boundaries without hitting and yelling all the time? I'm sorry this is long. I just don't have a support system that can guide me with advice. Thank you, mamas.
Oh, baby.
Oh, gosh.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
But can we note there are 2 questions here? 2 very different questions.
Yeah. Somebody else wants to answer first.
Handling the unsolicited parenting advice. Actually, I would add a third. How to handle unsolicited parenting advice. Then in the middle, mama's only saying this to the 1-year-old. She's not saying it to her own child.
Which is weird.
Which is not okay.
Yeah.
And then the third part was how to raise an emotionally intelligent child. Cool.
The unsolicited parenting advice, I feel like we all get that, especially when you're on your first kid, when everybody,
in year
you know,
1, when you haven't set boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. That you don't know what boundaries are. But for myself, I'll listen to what somebody's saying and I just take what I need, and the rest is like, okay, that's your opinion, but I kind of just ignore them. Person. I'm like, because what am I going to do? Go back and forth with you and I'm like, for what?
No, I think that is super smart. I say ignore, and then there comes a point when you have to create boundaries, which is what Codie said. And I've had to do that with family members though, and I had to be like, okay, I'm gonna need you to stop saying that. Like, I don't care how awkward it gets, because what's happening is now I'm having anxiety, or I'm having unpleasant interactions with people, or unpleasant energy every time I go around certain family, knowing that they're gonna say something or make a negative comment. And that's just even for unsolicited advice, period. Like about parenting, about your body, about your marriage, you know what I mean? Like how some family just feels like they could say whatever they want. And I've had to tell aunties, like, first of all, we're not going to comment on my body anymore. So that conversation is out. And you're not going to comment on the way I parent my child anymore. I'm sorry that you feel like I'm not doing a good job, but this is my baby.
It's mine.
Yeah, so I really just don't care. And you know, that's hard. It's hard for a lot of people, especially in the Black community. You don't talk to your elders that way. But when you have birthed a child out of your body, or you adopted them or whatever, you're raising a kid, that is now your responsibility. And honestly, it's not for anyone else to say anything to. So you create healthy boundaries, but you speak up for yourself and let people know that it's not okay, and they cannot continue to keep saying these things to you.
And especially if they're not saying them with love, like if they're just saying it. And I'm very like livid at this woman talking to the child,
A 1-year-old.
1-year-old,
because it's more than just like saying to mom, hey, your child is rude. Now you're telling this little girl who she is, because you're the grown up, the grandmother, looking her in her face and saying, you little girl are this. And that's not cool, even if she is rude.
Right. But how can a 1-year-old be rude? Like, yes, there's some 1-year-olds that are out of control. Sure, whatever. But rude is like consciousness. You have to call someone rude, they have to be conscious of their behavior and intentionally doing that.
I think it's just a projection of what this grandmother feels this child should be giving them, what type of way they should be interacting with them, what their expectation of what the relationship is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, this is something that I can definitely like identify with as far as like the elders, Caribbean people, like a certain old school way of thinking that children must behave a certain way, or it makes them this, that, and the just unapologetic desire to constantly express how things should be done, and when we raise children, and this, that, and it is a fine line. I think I with Riley, I feel like I understand what Riley is going through as far as like, hey, you know, we don't see them often. Is this worth the fight? You know, is this worth the fight every single time? But it's obviously affecting your relationship, Riley, with your child as well. And so I think that, you know, in that space, I think we should ask ourselves the intention of why we're doing anything always. And it's usually to do no harm. And so in any other arena in the world, if you stood up for yourself, no one would question you. And so we kind of like have this weird boundary when it comes to our moms or our elders. And granted, not all battles need to be won and fought in the same day. But I think when your safety of yourself and the safety of your child and the security in which you feel within that relationship, the safety you feel, that's the word I just kind of want to bring it back to, the safety that you feel to be your authentic self, for your child to feel safe with ever whom they're around, is more than enough reason, I think, to advocate for yourself, to say, hey, this is a boundary that I want to set. And then also too, recognizing that relationship being projected to your daughter is also, it's also affecting the way you're parenting, because you're not even comfortable with the way that you're parenting, with being physical or yelling, you know, and so that's also going to take some unlearning for yourself if you want things to be different, for your daughter to grow up in a different environment, you know? And you want your kids always, I think ultimately for anybody, you want your kids to feel safe around whoever they're around.
I agree.
And that's just, you know, that should be the marker of like, where do I go? Who am I around? Who does my child be around? And that's hard sometimes when it's your mom, but sometimes there's a boundary that needs to be set and respected.
I also feel like this is the beginning of, for this, Riley, right? Okay. I was about to call her Brianna. So I also feel like with Riley, she's in such a position of like really breaking generational strongholds. That's what that looks like. That's where it starts now, is like in the 1-year-old, where you start to put the boundary, like that's not how we're doing. I'm not hitting. I'm not yelling. You're not going to talk to her directly, and putting those boundaries up. And the way that I always look at it is like, I put up boundaries for everyone, for myself, but also like for my children. And even with family, I'm like, I don't care who it is. I'm going to ever so gently tell you absolutely not. I'm like, cause you know what I mean? I'm like, because I know what it feels like to grow up in those environments and all the work I have to do as an adult to unlearn all that shit. So with my kids, I'm very protective over, let me protect them as much as I can, but understanding that I am literally a pioneer of breaking these generational curses, whatever we want to call it. I'm breaking it. And it looks like at 1 year old, when you're telling, you know, your mother is telling your 1-year-old, I'm like, no, that's very clear what's happening.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
So being okay with that. And I think about it as like I'm protecting my inner child when I also show up for my children and say, hey,
That
don't,
part.
you're not gonna tell her that she needs to be slapped. Like, absolutely not.
Yeah, that part
You know?
is like, and say it in front of your child, because I think that's important too, because when we allow adults to say inappropriate things to children and we don't correct those adults in front of the children, they don't understand how wrong it is.
Yeah.
And even if you do it later on, the child is now, there's like secrecy to it, and there's also accountability to it. And I don't think we realize how every single thing we do affects how children receive, understand, and stand up for themselves in the future. So I'm completely an advocate of like, nah, that's not okay. We don't hit. Everybody hurt me. Cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's not what we do in this house.
Yeah,
We're not
I
hitting
don't
anybody.
care who you are.
Only person gonna get slapped might be you if you keep on telling me you're gonna slap my child.
Right.
No, where's one more question? What was the other question there?
No,
There was
that's
like
it.
two.
Oh.
There was
No,
like another one.
that was all of them.
Oh, okay, good.
Oh, I mean, how can I raise an emotionally intelligent child and also stick to having firm and stern boundaries?
We covered
Yada yada yada. And
Girl,
I
stand
think
up-
we
stand up
definitely
for her.
covered it. But I also think
In front of your
it's
mama.
good, like that she knows what she's trying to do. She knows what her goal is. She knows why she's feeling insecure about it because her mother is making her feel insecure about it. But also because, like she said, she doesn't have a support system. And so my opinion on that last question is just like continue to like do the research and have the conversations
Yeah.
required to be the parent that you want to be.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a lot of resources out there now. You know, I definitely sometimes feel like, man, these kids still yelling at me, even though I'm trying to teach them how to use their voice, but they're using it against me. Let me figure out if there are other ways for me to approach this.
100%.
yeah.
And so that doesn't mean we get it right all the time, but there's endless resources, I think, for finding tools and to nail it.
And
Just what you
trusting
said.
your judgment, trusting your judgment too.
Yeah.
I think as a mom, I think sometimes, especially when we're first time moms, like as we're going through the motions, it's okay. I have to listen to my mom or my grandmother or an elder because they've done it before. But knowing when there's some things that I'm like, I don't really get down with that. Like, like the whole idea of hitting somebody to make them listen, I'm like, that just sounds so crazy to me.
I know, but it sounds so normal to everyone.
No, right. But that's why I'm like, but when I really break it down, like for myself and my children, I'm like, no, I just need to work on my, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I would end it on, because this is my favorite thing right now, is therapy. But I would say to heal yourself while you're trying to heal your children, because that's what Codie just said. She's like, okay, I taught them to use their voice, and now they're using their voice against me. And that's because we're teaching our children to do things that we weren't taught how to do. So we're learning at the same time as them.
absolutely.
So we don't even have the tools to handle them properly articulating themselves or whatever, because we're still triggered by our childhood, like, oh, that's disrespectful, whatever. So I would say, as you're trying to teach your child, heal your own wounds and heal your own childhood traumas and really work on that through therapy, because the more healed you are, the better example you will give to your daughter and be able to help her, you know, articulate herself and have a healthy relationship. Faux shizzle.
How you going? Where your paper?
I've been using it as a coaster. Thank you all so much for your questions and connecting with us. We are really loving our village of mamas. Make sure you're leaving us those 5 stars and writing reviews. If you want to submit a question to us, or you can connect with us on Instagram at the Mama's Den Podcast, fill out our form in the show notes, or send us an email at podcast with an S at blacklove.com, and we'll get to your question in a future episode. Ta-ta.
Ta-ta. Ta-ta.